Hi, I'm Seamless, and today I want to talk to you about the concept of ammunition. And in this case, I'm referring to having ammunition for writing songs. I just got out of a lesson with a guy, and he expressed a problem that I've heard expressed a lot, and also one that I've experienced myself when I was a newer producer, which is that this feeling that you may even see other people like when they write songs and they do their videos or whatever, that they say things like how they can hear an idea of where it's going to go, or they feel that this is going to be the next right choice, or that this sound is going to go well with this other sound. And how do they know that? How do they feel that? Maybe you're not feeling that. Maybe that's weird. And the guy who had the question was just saying precisely that, was that they didn't feel that they get that like they could feel where things were going to go, that they were just basically perpetually lost. And the reason for that is entirely about time. And there's pretty much a direct correlation between how new you are and how much this happens. For example, for me, at this point now, I hear a lot pretty much all the time. I hear possibilities for where things can go in numbers that are just pretty staggering. And I also can tell when things are going to go well together and all these things, and that's entirely from experience. The idea that I've done most of this stuff, I've tried things that didn't work or did work, and that when I hear things in my head now, I can associate them with something that I've attempted in the past. And if you have not been producing long enough, then you just have not done enough of that, which means that you don't have as much ammunition as I do to be able to do that. And it has nothing to do with me being good or better or worse than you, and more just that I've been doing it longer. And it's a huge number of problems get solved by this, which is a little bit of a bad thing, just because a lot of people, I'm sure, are expecting that there's some sort of technique that you can practice. And while there's not really a substitute for actual experience, there are ways that you can kind of shorten the experience to sort of make it so that you're not like wasting your time in a particular way. The biggest, I think the one that matters the most is sound design, personally, because music theory has been done to death. Like, you could learn as much as you want about every kind of music theory you could possibly think of, just because we've been doing it for hundreds of like centuries. So that means that, like, if you want to figure out about it, that not only is the information there, but like the methods of learning it have been codified so hard that it's actually not that hard anymore. But things like sound design have a particular problem of that. While you may know what the sound sounds like in your head and you can point it out in a song, you have no real way of knowing what that's called. Like, until someone says the words supersaw to you, you probably never even thought of it. Or growl or reese, and any of the buzzwords that I talk about all the time, like about trying to describe things, because just even if you do know the names, they're not terribly intuitive. Like particular like all the names to my how to bass videos, like a big thing that for my channels, that I try not to clickbait stuff. I don't say like it sounds crunchy Skrillex bass. Like I actually call it I name it what it's called. Mid-side vocoder bass. Like, and if you don't know what that is, if you can't like place in your mind what that sounds like, then that's not helpful to you. And if you're new and you know the names of basically nothing, but you are familiar with all the sounds that you're hearing, you hear the sound and you get a big old blank in your brain of like, crap, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to even approach doing that. Same thing with like a musical idea. You hear in your brain, okay, it's going to go in this direction. Maybe you hear a particular chord progression, but like you just do not know. You cannot associate a name for any of that. So then you're left just trial and error in the dark until you find something that works. And like I said with music theory, like you can you can just read up on it directly and you're done with it. Sound design is a little bit more of a hands-on thing. You need to, I recommend this all the time to people that are wanting to learn sound design from nothing, is that you just need to experiment with the basic stuff. You need to learn what all the basic waveforms sound like. You need to learn what they all sound like with all the basic filters. You need to sound like what they sound like with the basic filters and then distorted. You need to sound like with the basic filters and with a chorus and then distorted, with a flanger and then distorted. Like, experiment with a very tight group, a very basic order of like the basic stuff. And what that does is it puts in your brain a big repertoire of how all the stuff sounds, so that when you hear something, you go to yourself, that kind of sounds like what a bandpass filter sounds like, but there's like a bunch of different stuff done to it. And then then you gotta work on identifying what the bunch of different stuff is. And like every additional level of complication adds a wider variety of things that are possible. Like the filter example, like, cool, you've identified, that's a square wave, that's a bandpass filter. And then there's this extra thing going on to it that I'm not totally sure about. And then you hear a particular quality of sound to it. And like this happened to me a lot. Like when I heard the original Kill the Noise stuff, like this can kind of go two different, either way. I heard Illinois stuff and I heard FM because that's what FM sounds like. And I only know that because I experimented with FM a little bit to that point, and I understood that that's the kind of sound that I can make. So I tried really hard for a really long time trying to get Illinois sounds out of just straight up FM, and turns out, nope, that was done with Massive, and it utilized different techniques other than the outside FM entirely. But I at least had that association, and I was able to sort of move forward with it. I learned a lot about FM in the process, and I credit that particular event in my life for a big reason why I know a lot about FM, because I can hear, like, I'll hear that a particular quality of sound that sounds an awful lot like what happens when you FM a certain thing by some other certain thing, and there's no like technical reason why I know that. There was no technique that I knew or like procedural education that I had that told me what that was. I just did it one day on an utterly random whim, and as a result, it's in my brain, and I know what it sounds like. And that might feel like some kind of superhuman feat of memory to you, but that's not. You can do it too. It's fairly normal. You really just have to build association to stuff, because you just do not have any of it when you're new. And not only do you not have any of it, but you kind of assume that no one does, because how could they? These things I just described to you sound like superhuman feats of memory and musical ability and that kind of thing. It's really just a product of time. Like what I do is impressive and all, but it took me 12 years to get here. 12 years is a long time, especially when the majority of you guys are probably under 1 year. And then, if I would love to see the stats on this of like how many people are under a year, how many people have 2 years. I could probably do a poll. I could do a poll. Oh, man, I'll think about that later. But the value of this is that it might seem like it was impressive that I could do all this crazy crap, but like after you take into account how long it took me to get here, it stops being impressive and starts being, well, I should hope so. And not that I'm saying that it's going to take you that long to get here, or that it even should, because it's also a reminder that like half that time was spent in an era with incredibly shitty computing, and the FL wasn't as good as it is now. Like, you have a lot more available to you, including, among other things, information about how to do some of the stuff, which didn't exist when I was around, like, new. And I'm sure that'll be true, 10 years from now. Like, a lot of things that people are struggling with now will suddenly be commonplace. And the idea that anyone has any kind of problems with it is laughable, just because, hey, you can just look up how to do it, and there it is, it's done. But, such as living in the information age. But anyway, the whole point of all of this is that you need to practice stuff. And like, I know that it feels hard to get around the idea that you're not making immediate and tangible progress because of direct knowledge, and that you do just need to practice stuff. And that is sort of still the main way that humans learn things. And we're probably not going to get away from that for a very long time. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And as usual, have a nice day.